Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Russ Means, and I'm the program director for the Minerals Program. Today, we're having a scoping meeting for the upcoming Hard Rock. Oh, we're getting an echo there. So today is our scoping meeting, and basically what that means is that we're here to kind of listen to some ideas, kind of throw out what the issues are that we're going to be looking at. And then what we want to do is provide time for potential stakeholders to have some discussion about that and submit timely comments to us so that when we start to promulgate the draft rules, we have an idea of what the different stakeholders have in mind as issues and concerns so that we can do our best to start off in the formal process with at least something in the ballpark. So as I noted, today's meeting is for dialogue for potential stakeholders for the Hard Rock. This meeting is informal, and any comments submitted are not part of any official or a record or process at this point. That will come later when we begin our formal stakeholder process and rulemaking process and stuff, which I'll get to that schedule and stuff before we're done. So please feel free here to express any ideas or concerns, as the goal of this meeting is to identify areas and stuff that we need to focus on as we move forward. I'm going to do that. Okay, I'll do it. So the proposed Hard Rock rulemaking that we are moving into has two components to it. The first one is to address the requirements of House Bill 191113 that was passed in the last legislative session, and then also to address inconsistencies and ambiguities, and also create a clearer administrative process for regulation of TC, which is temporary cessation. The goals for the rulemaking regarding 1113 are to, there's different components to the act. One of them is some reporting requirements in regards to hydrological impacts. What this is going to do is kind of memorialize some of the things that we do in Hard Rock already on a case-by-case basis, where we have water quality and quantity issues. Usually when we approve a permit that has that kind of requirements and stuff, we require the operator to submit those with their annual report. And that's always been a stipulation. So this is going to once again kind of codify that in the rules. The next thing and stuff is part of the act is to address perpetual water treatment and the impacts and stuff there. Part of the act says that we're an operator has to demonstrate by substantial evidence a reasonable end date for any water quality treatment necessary to ensure compliance with water quality standards. We're looking at that probably to go into Rule 3.16, but there again, we're open to discussions on that. What that means as far as industry goes, what the environmental community is looking for, and what the division looks at is a broad spectrum. So we need to have a discussion and stuff and see if we can get something into the rule that addresses the concerns and stuff that were driven by this bill, but also and stuff gives some latitude to the division to work with operators and stuff in that on their mining processes. And then the third component of that is financial warranties for perpetual water treatment and the elimination of references to self-bonding. For the record, out of 1,400 permits, we only had one that was self-bonded, and that's now in full reclamation, and they're changing over their bonding as we speak today. So it just eliminates that. This is kind of driven from on a national level from a lot of the coal mines and stuff that were too big to fail. Well, they failed. Several of them failed. So self-assurance and stuff across the country has become something of the past. So I don't see a lot of impact and stuff to operators and stuff at this point, but we need to address that within our act and our rules. So as we noted and stuff in that part of this is the reporting requirements under Rule 113. And as I'm going through this, if you have questions or whatever, go ahead and throw them out there. This is really informal. Or take your notes and stuff and that, and you can submit something to us and stuff electronically. That would be great too. So under 32.16.3, part of the annual reports notes that we need to show the extent of current disturbances to the affected lands, and also changes over the preceding year regarding any disturbances to the prevailing hydrological balance. As noted, most of that information and stuff is required as a stipulation. So this is just kind of codifying what we're doing. As for by substantial evidence of a reasonable end date, we're looking to put that in Rule 3.16. Within the Act, there are a couple of, I don't want to say exemptions and stuff, but clarifications. Under G3, the board may approve a plan that lacks the substantial evidence if a new or amended permit includes an environmental protection plan, an EPP, and a written determination for A and B. We'll talk about that a little bit. A is no reasonable end date can be established as it was unforeseen at the time of approval or existing at the mine site permitted before January 1st, 2019. So if it's pre-existing conditions and they were permitted and stuff under that, as long as it's not an amendment that we have to go through and take a look at and see what we got there, then there's an exemption there. And then also B says that if it was previously mined but not permitted as of January 1st, 2019, and the conditions do not meet the applicable water quality standards, and no reasonable foreseeable end date can be established. And that's, again, January 1st, 2019. So if somebody's going to come in and permit something, they'll have to do some water sampling and do some other things and stuff and that to help establish what that existing water quality is and stuff prior to that. But that's some of the things and stuff that we need to take a look at and spell out in that within the rule. And then can we go? There we go. And then the third part of that component actually has to do with if a permit is limited to reclamation of an already mined site. This is kind of a reclamation only permit. We only have a couple of those and stuff, but they're primarily remediation projects and stuff where whoever's doing the work may be doing some other stuff. And that, so it limits the, it helps in reclamation only permit stuff so that they're not having to be burdened with unnecessary water quality issues and stuff and that for cleaning up a site. So there's only about 1 or 2 sites in the state that kind of qualify for that now. This slide has a lot on it. There's a lot of tiny print, but I'll just let you know. So basically, it's just eliminating under 117 parent 3 parent F Roman numeral number 6 and 7 spells out all of the things and stuff that are for self-assurance, self-bonding. So part of the act and stuff adds in under 4B1, it includes all measures to commence reasonable foreseen and assure the protection of water resources, including costs necessary to cover water quality protection, treatment, and monitoring as may be required by permit. This is the perpetual water treatment part of the bonding. We have a few sites and stuff where we have put together programs and stuff to cover that cost, but we're going to need to kind of codify that a little bit so that industry and all stakeholders and stuff understand what's at stake when we look at that particular instance. Are there any questions up to this point? I mean, it's pretty cut and dry and stuff right now, so I'm going to get through this and hopefully we can get into some conversation in that. So, And another part of that eliminates all the references and stuff to self-bonding. Under temporary cessation, one of the biggest points of contention and stuff that the division, industry, and environmentalists have is that temporary cessation is tied around production, but production is not defined. So we're going to have to come up with something that everybody can live with as far as production, what that means and how that ties into everything as far as temporary cessation goes. So we want to define production. Then we need to define when in TC it's appropriate to that temporary cessation is applied, and how that works with development, production, and other defined mining activities in relation to TC, as well as the term of the entire life of mine. We also want to clarify the process for going into TC 1 and 2. We have here in 2010, 2011, we kind of cobbled together the process that we use now that was based on what the rules said, what we thought they were trying to say, and then being very conservative about it. Nobody's really had too much of an issue with it. In a first TC, we have a form you fill out. We notice that on the board, we send out the required notices to the county and to communities within 2 miles. And then we put it on the agenda. If nobody objects to that site going into temporary cessation, then that's simply moved to temporary up to consent agenda, and the board approves it and we move on. For the second TC, it's a similar process where an operator submits the form, we send out the notices. However, there's within the rules in that it requires certain things from the office, the division and stuff prior to a hearing before the board. So any temporary cessation, second temporary cessation period and stuff has to go before the board and stuff for consideration no matter what. So we kind of cobbled that together. That's not really clear within the current rules, but we want to make sure that moving forward, when we come out of this at the end of stuff, we have a clear process for everybody to understand. And then another thing that kind of is interesting is that there's a lot of focus over the last 5 to 6 years and stuff on getting folks properly into temporary cessation or not, and that. But there hasn't been a lot of discussion of what happens when sites come out of temporary cessation. Industry as well as other stakeholders and stuff need to have a clear understanding of the process that happens there. Quite honestly and stuff in that over the years and stuff, it was just a letter being sent in that says, hey, we're reactivating. But the division needs to go out and talk with the operator on the ground to see what they're doing, to see whether that rises up to the level of a mining operation and back into production, or whether that's what's referred to as token excavations or token work or whatever. We certainly don't want an operator and stuff to spend a lot of money and stuff to go in and just do some exploration work and maybe some maintenance and stuff and think that they're going to be able to qualify for coming out of temporary cessation. It requires a commitment and stuff to get back into production and move that project forward. So we'll be working on that, and so we expect everybody to have some opinions on how that looks and how we're going to move forward with that. Really quick, most everybody knows, but mining operations are we consider something active if they are conducting mining operations throughout the entire year. An intermittent operation is one that is 180 days or less worth of production or mining activities. And the key here and stuff is that's annual work. So every year they have to be up there working. So this and stuff, actually, when we kicked it into gear, most of those that qualify for intermittent status are the ones that are high altitude that can only get up to their sites and stuff from, say, end of May into October if they're lucky. We also have some sites and stuff that have some wildlife restrictions and stuff because of calving or lek issues and things like that that forbid them from working during certain times of the year. So, and then temporary cessation, it notes that mining operations have temporarily ceased production for up to, and they can do that for up to 5-year period. And here again, the exact wording is production for temporary cessation, but that's not defined. So I will skip over, honestly, and stuff. I have these up here and stuff in that for reference in our discussions and stuff as far as what the actual CSR and stuff are there. And that I don't think we need to go into that brain drain in that. In the rules and stuff that we'll be looking at for temporary cessation, there is a list of things that for indication of temporary cessation, we'll be taking a look at that and seeing where we can fine tune that to better help everybody understand what's going on there. Interesting enough, one of the things and stuff that I've been talking about was the idea of, it may not be clearly defined what about a site that's in development versus actually mining. And we have a joke and stuff that we can look at these rules for 15, 20 years, and then all of a sudden something jumps out at you. Well, I had one of those aha moments. Number 7 under the current rules says that mine development has ceased and mining has not recommenced. So there is a reference there to development sites in temporary cessation, but I think that needs to be fleshed out a little bit so that it's clear for industry and the division and other stakeholders and stuff as when a site is in development, how long and stuff that they have in that, and that they're not exempt from the temporary cessation statute. But the interesting part here and then is how does that tie back into production and stuff. So that's where the sausage will be made. There are right now currently are 2 indications against TC. That's the extraction of the minerals and stuff have been completed and they're in full reclamation. Reclamation is part of the life of mine by definition. So if a site's in full reclamation, they don't have to be in temporary cessation because under Rule 3, they have 5 years in order to complete that. And then the other thing is that the permit has been issued, but there has been no mining operations commenced at the site. And we get into what the exact rules and stuff say, and this is how we've kind of cobbled together everything and stuff for our current TC process. But that's straight out of the statutes and stuff. And actually, I left a couple of copies of it back there in the back if you really want to have something to put you to sleep tonight. Production, it's a little hard to read from here in that we're looking for a definition of production. And the division and stuff has, you can go into, you can Google it and come up with about 15 different definitions of what production is. The trick here and stuff will be to be taking a look at it and how that ties into our act and rules specifically. So if you have language and stuff that you think and stuff would meet what should be part of our definition of production and stuff, I think that would be very, very helpful. Like I said, we have one view of it, of the world. Industry certainly has their own, which is very important in that. And then environmentalists and other stakeholders also have a different view of that. So it's going to be important to see all the different ones and how we can maybe cobble together a definition that everybody can understand and live with. And with that, we'll open it up for discussion. But if you have comments and stuff other than what we have today, if you go to our website, and which we just updated here the first part of January. You go to if you just go to the old website, it'll actually forward you on to the new one. You'll see there's a link there for rulemaking. If you click on that, there's actually a spot there to submit comments. And we really strongly urge everybody to do submit their comments by electronically. For one thing, what that does is when you submit that comment, it automatically downloads your comments, your name and your email contact and everything else all into a spreadsheet so that it's the most effective and efficient way of doing that. And we can keep track of that. And also, as we move into the next phase of the rulemaking and get more formal, you'll be able to be contacted directly about what that is and stuff to ensure that you're part of that process. Yes, sir.
Do you have the PowerPoint on your website? I looked on your website. Can you get that electronically?
This one here today, we can, I'll get it on there and stuff. Yeah, I know that there's a few folks and stuff that are listening in remotely and they could see this. The file was so big, I couldn't send it to a few people and that. So, but yeah, I think we can get that posted on there so that as a reference and stuff with all this supporting information and stuff that's behind the scenes that we're not necessarily talking about today. So, and that, so, but we'll make sure we get that done. So if you go to our website and go to our page, you'll see this kind of a schedule for what we're looking at. As noted and stuff, today is our just our scoping meeting, you know, our open discussion. We're going to ask everybody and stuff to have any of their comments and stuff in that after they've taken a look at what we're looking at. To us by March 6th. So we're trying to give everybody some time to do that. Once we have those comments and stuff in place and stuff, we'll draft some rules and a statement for basis and stuff. And our target date for having those draft rules out for review by stakeholders and stuff will be April 24th. From there, we'll be moving into our more formal stakeholder meetings. We have some tentative dates set up. One of them will be here in this room at 1:30 on June 26th. And then at this point, we have one scheduled for NUCLA on July 15th or 16th. Right now it's the 16th, but we could move that up to the 15th and stuff. But that time and exact dates to be determined. The great thing is that when we're on the road, when we go down there, as long as the site where we're at has Wi-Fi, which we're pretty sure it does, we'll be able to do just like we're doing today and stuff and doing a live broadcast and stuff. So people that can't attend or want to listen in on that one after attending the one here to see what the differences are and stuff, they can certainly do that. And then our target date for formal rulemaking by the board will be September 29th. But there again, that depends on how some of these other things come into play and how and when we can get things published and stuff with the Secretary of State and other issues like that. So with that in mind, I'd like to open it up for discussions and stuff as to some of your concerns, some of your ideas, and what you feel, is there something here we're missing and stuff that we need to take a look at? So. And don't be shy. Yes, sir.
This process you just once you have maybe like a preliminary draft of the rules to then have something to look at to comment informally, or is it kind of when that first draft comes out, it starts the formal process?
We can, I think that once we have the, everybody's comments and stuff, if we're able to get, the draft rules and stuff out, I think we could start taking informal comments and stuff in that. And then as we move into the stakeholder meetings and stuff, then the formal comments would be there. But I think we can get that's the idea and stuff, is to be able to release that in the end of April. And then there's that like 60-day period and stuff there before the first stakeholder. So I think that's a period and stuff in that we can put in there and stuff to submit comments and stuff in that. So that will that work?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it might be, it's hard sometimes to have input. You know, I think it's kind of general without having at least a
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
There's a way to have that.
Yeah.
Something to work off of in the informal process. That may be a way to get it.
Yeah. If we can get the draft rules and stuff done before April 24th, that's just the goal, in that. But if we get it earlier and stuff, we'll start maybe moving some of that out. I don't have a problem with. And the great thing about the web page and stuff is we can put it out there and send out a notice and say, hey, we have some draft rules and stuff that we're still working on, but here's where we're headed. And that, so I think we can work on that. I don't think that would be too much of and then like I said, you know, from April 24th until the very first, until the stakeholders meeting and stuff and that, if we can get those out where you have plenty of time to do that and submit comments and stuff in between there and stuff, that would be advantageous as well. So, Mr. Larson.
I'm Bob Larson from URA.
Yeah. Pass the mic around.
I can do this, hit the button, and it'll go green, and
Okay, maybe we're on. I'm Bob Larson from Uray, and I'm representing the Western small miners over on the Western Slope. And we appreciate being included in helping formulate your regulations. I just want to point out again of how strongly we feel about the legislative declaration where it says that we are to foster and encourage development of economically sound and stable mining and the mineral industry. So this is foremost to us, is to have that sound industry. So we are appreciative of being able to participate in that, and your interest in coming over to the Western Slope for that July meeting. We'll get that worked out with you. And there's a lot of local people there, a lot of local miners who will have things that they want to say. But with the knowledge, experience, and understanding that our group has for mining and the mining industry, I think we can help you out in trying to develop this in the best way. Things like production, we'll go through that together and we'll come up with our definition that's a consensus of our group and move forward with that. So, you know, we're very concerned about, you know, economic costs of reclamation that's also mentioned in that declaration, so that there's a reasonable relationship to costs and environmental benefits. And then economic reasonableness in these actions is very important to us. So that's where we're coming from. That's where we hope to add information and suggestions and be a part of the decision-making process.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. One of the things and stuff in that, having come from the Western Slope, and that is there is an interesting difference in definitions and stuff sometimes between small miners and stuff on the western side and some of our bigger industry and stuff that's here, and then out here on the Front Range. So it's really important that when we're doing that that definition of production, we have everybody's input, so that something that might seem small and insignificant to some of our operators and stuff is, you know, you guys only can dream about getting up to that level. So that's going to be really important to have your guys' input and stuff as we move forward. So. Paul?
Well, I always have money.
Oh, I know you do. So.
So Paul Szilagyi, New Vemco LLC. Hello to those of you I don't know. So since you called on me, Russ, I feel like I'm in school. But let me ask you this to start off. Do you have any best management practices or regulation and rules that you've identified from other states that we could look at as we formulate a response to this?
I'll let my attorney handle it. No.
Jeff Hugate, I'm attorney for the division. So I know some in the room, but not all of you. I'm helping out Russ on kind of the rulemaking process here and the development of the rules. That's one of the things that I've tasked myself with, is compiling a list of what other states are doing, focusing on both, you know, the TC aspect and the water quality changes. I'm starting my focus on really looking at what other states, and really Western states, I'm trying to focus more on Western states, on how we come up with a workable definition for production and development, how we can make sure those terms work together to, you know, ensure there's continued kind of regulatory oversight by the division, that it does implement what we believe is the proper intent of the act. I have no problem making that list available once I kind of fine tune it and see where things are at. I'm not sure what even exists out there in other states for those kinds of definitions. If needed, we might have to dip into the coal world for how they manage temporary cessation, but I'm trying to avoid that, starting with a narrow focus just on hard rock TC issues.
Thank you.
So,
Do you have some specific examples you'd like for us to look at?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
After Jeff
yeah, here to make
provides some.
Okay. Very good.
Well, and that's part of that. Sorry to keep the mic here. That's part of the purpose of this scoping meeting and kind of reaching out to you all is I'm obviously the division's interested in finding workable definitions from all of the stakeholders, even before we develop our own draft. I mean, Miguel, you said you'd be interested in kind of a first draft, so you've got something to look at. I appreciate that, and it's always easier to work off of. But some of what Russ and I have discussed is having the division's first draft be informed by this group of people. So if you guys do have proposals, suggested language, please send it my way, even if it's kind of just incomplete paragraphs, just so we can start kicking that around as well. Because I think once the division does produce the first draft, that's kind of the starting point. We'd like to have that first draft be close to a consensus on language if possible. It always makes things go a little easier if there is some consensus on the starting point.
Anybody else?
Well, if nobody's going to speak up, I'll go ahead and bring up a concern about temporary cessation.
Okay.
And, we need to keep underground operations open for access over an extended period of time. Just because we're such a cyclic industry, if you look at and I don't, with Brian and others here, I don't want to be stepping out of school, but having been involved with the Revenue Virginia's project for a number of years, considering that was driven in the early 1900s, and then they mined, they leased, it was shut down, opened back up. Camp Bird was in there, Federal Resources was in there. Then we at Ranchers Exploration came in, used those same workings, had them available. That was shut down, a couple other operators. And now Brian is turning that into a viable economic operation. If we had had these reclamation procedures where all of that had to be shut down, that wouldn't be available today. So we need to keep that in mind too, that we need to be able to go back into these areas where there are mine workings, keep them accessible, and allow us to go with what the market is allowing us to do.
That's a good point, Mr. Larson. This Russ Means again. One of the things, the stuff that we have been talking with operators about is there's different types of ways and stuff to reclaim portals, adits, and access and stuff there with the mindset that at some point you may want to have access back in there. I know that in some reclamation plans there was concrete plugging and actually caving in the portals and stuff. We've tended to try to get away from that with that exact idea in mind, is what if you had to get back in there. A lot of the times the stuff of blasting and dropping a portal entrance and stuff, it usually ends up 15, 20 years later and stuff. It actually opens up on the backside of wherever it caved in anyway. So we're better off in stuff reclaiming those at the surface. So that's something I think that we can deal with in that to make to kind of answer that question and stuff in a reclamation plan. So. All right. Anybody else out there in the audience already have any questions or any concerns or comments from that? We're certainly willing to listen. So Stan, Mr. Dempsey, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Russ. Stan Dempsey, Colorado Mining Association. I'm struggling a little bit to know what our homework assignment is until we get the first draft.
What the division's asking is if you have specific areas of concern and stuff as far as moving forward in rulemaking, there's copies of the existing rules that are in place now. What we're seeking in that is comments and stuff on what do you think the processes and stuff should be for going in and out of temporary cessation is what we have working in that as far as notices and that process in front of the board. Is there some areas and stuff within indications of temporary cessation that we need to address more fully or to eliminate? One part, Rule 1.13 and stuff like I said, it's kind of you go through all these things, and then if you get to the end, it says, well, if you did do that, you don't have to do all this other stuff. So we've kind of gotten away from that. But what are what's going to be the definition of mining operations, production, and all that? How does that all come together? Give us your thoughts on the concerns and stuff that are going forward with that. When it comes to perpetual water treatment and bonding, certainly each one of the ones and stuff that we've done has kind of been unique. Is that the way you want as a stakeholders group and stuff? Is that the way to keep it, or is there need to be a more formal process and stuff defined within the rule? Because it all depends. Because water treatment can be anything from a passive system and stuff that only costs, a few $1,000s up to multi-million-dollar ones like up at Climax and stuff that are going to be up there for a very, very long time. How do we, I don't know if there's a one size fits all, but we need to have the discussion and stuff of what we think those impacts are and what the concerns are and stuff if the rules go one way or the other and stuff. So I think the big thing is stuff for, self-bonding is off the table, obviously. So the reporting requirements aren't that big of a deal. So I think the assignment and stuff out of this, and that is we needed the firm definition of production, how it ties into all of these other aspects and stuff. And since TC is directly tied to that framework and that word, it's interesting that throughout the entire act, they talk about extraction except in one place, and that's temporary cessation, where they talk about production and that, but yet the rules and stuff also note development and everything else. So we need that input and stuff, how those pieces you think they should be fitting together. Yeah. So.
Let me just ask a follow-up on that with the temporary cessation. You kind of described, or going back to 2010 and 11, and the process that you either currently go through or did go through. Do you have that in writing, or is that process?
It's more an internal policy of how we do it and stuff. So it has not been memorialized and stuff of that as far as a policy and stuff in that, but it's been more of an internal process that we came up with. And we have that written down and stuff so that it's consistent. But there is not a formal policy and stuff of how that's been addressed. So.
I mean, I'm just asking because it's always a frame of reference for me.
Yeah. So we can, it's written down somewhere. We might be able to put that out there. This is what the current process, informal process and stuff is and stuff.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
And I think in our discussions and stuff with the board back then and stuff, we kind of outlined that, what the process was, and they were comfortable with it because it took a kind of a conservative approach to ensuring that the proper notices were in place and that it was also posted on the board agenda and stuff as is required.
Russ, I have another question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you more interested in prescriptive definitions that narrowly define what the rules and regulations are going to be, or are you more interested in a general description that gives discretion to DRMS that allows them to make site-specific determinations?
Most of our rules and stuff in that are give us the discretion to, on a site-by-site basis, to kind of take a look at all the different parameters, because while they all have some commonality, each one of them is different. The division has to make deference to the act. Obviously, that's the law, but we would, I think that when we're looking at it, we'd like to see some opinions and stuff that give us a little bit, instead of being too narrowly defined, maybe being a little bit broader and stuff to allow us the latitude to help operators and also other stakeholders and stuff in that process and stuff there too. So does that answer the question? Yes,
and I
no.
hope you're successful.
Yeah, okay. All right. So. All right. Mr. Briggs, do you have anything? You're just here to,
Here to listen.
okay.
I was wondering, I was sitting here thinking about your definition of perfection. I mean, MSHA's having the same problem.
Yeah. So-
I've had the same discussion with people in that. And, you know, you could actually envision the way, what you had up there on the screen. You can actually envision a company being in production, having to be in that cessation of operations at the same time. They don't meet their 180 days, but they actually produce something. So,
I know we had some discussions and stuff last week about different aspects of that. So please be sure and stuff to give me your thoughts and stuff in that in writing, and that'll help us out immensely. So, but that's part of the issue that we have that I noted is that, you know, a small uranium mine and stuff, they get 100 tons a day and stuff, they'd be tickled pink, you know, and stuff. Whereas for other bigger sites and stuff, they'd have to shut down if that was their output. So we need to have something in there that helps the entire process and stuff that meets the entire state, not just one specific group or another and stuff out of that whole process.
Russ, a couple of questions. Miguel Hammer at Climax Molybdenum and Company. Just a couple of areas that we'll probably be focused or interested in would be the exemptions in 3A and B and the Act, and just exactly specifically for an amended permit, and to what extent does that include amendments? You'd mentioned in your kind of opening slides that you'd be looking at what the amendment includes specifically, and kind of understanding where if that in fact any amendments would be exempt, or if there's an area where that would fall into the actual requirements of the Act.
Yeah, that's one of the questions and stuff that we'll have and stuff moving forward and stuff is where does that trigger come into play? You know, the date and stuff there, January 1st, 2019, and that, and maybe Mr. Parsons can get a little insight and stuff on that, or he'll have comments for us and stuff on that one. So, yeah, but that's one of the things and stuff that we'll need to spell. I think that it'll be really important for us to spell out is where that trigger and stuff is, and stuff of where these exemptions will play in it or not. And it may be one of those things and stuff where we can't really truly define that, and it'll be something that on a case-by-case basis as it comes up, stakeholders and stuff, and that'll probably bring it before the board and stuff for discussion. So, but it would be nice and stuff if we at least had some kind of a line in the sand and stuff that we know and stuff that we get to that point, then we need to move into the new standards.
And then the second item would be any bonding requirements around water treatment. And it seems like that's kind of, there's some language in the Act and what the regulations and how that's applied.
Right. Yeah, right now it's within the rules. It's not specifically spelled out. So what we have done in the past, just so people know, is under Rule 3, it takes 5 years, a minimum of 5. Well, not a minimum, but it takes 5 years and stuff to gain reclamation. So when we've had some sites and stuff that look like they were going to have a water treatment liability, we've taken that as a threshold and stuff and taken a look at the operating and maintenance cost of what the current water treatment systems are. For some bigger ones and stuff, we've actually bumped it up to 10 years and 15 years and stuff because of the probability if something went wrong, it would take us 2 to 3 years just to get our boots on the ground and stuff there. So, but that's not anywhere in the rules. We just kind of looked at it and said, this is where we have a toehold because 5 years is required for reclamation. And based on the act and the rules and stuff as they currently were sitting, that's kind of the formula that we have used. So moving forward in that may be something and stuff that we need to have a discussion, maybe memorialize that a little bit better as to what the minimum cost would be and stuff, and that and it'll be, like I said, site by site. You know, some of these and stuff only may be a couple $1,000s, but then you run into multi-million-dollar sites and stuff like the one up at Climax, and then that's a different ball game. So.
I want to bring up another question about water in that, you know, we are working in such mineralized areas that our groundwater, the water in the vein systems, et cetera, are highly mineralized. So at times, we're just providing another conduit for those to come out. If we shut that off in year X, it goes back to the springs and comes out. And I've taken people up to springs where there's above any mining, where there's a pH of 2, full of heavy metals. I mean, that's the natural condition that exists. That's not necessarily reflected in the stream standards that have been made. So we've got a discrepancy there of what is there naturally and what stream standards have been set. And then one other example is that maybe some groundwater and or water was intercepted that is very, very clean, and you have good water coming out, helping dilute the stream, making it better. And if we're required to shut that off in 2 or 3 years, bingo, that goes away. It goes just back to groundwater. It's not helping out the rest of it. So there's a lot of other issues to think about with this that a lot of us have experienced and are concerned with.
Yeah, per our the act and the rules and stuff, we have to abide by the CPHE water quality rules, table 41 and 42. So that gets complicated. I think that the tactic that we've tried to take on some of those sites and stuff is ensuring that our baseline and stuff before we start creating further disturbances and stuff is done correctly and stuff, so that we have some kind of record of that. One of the biggest pitfalls that we have currently in some of the stuff that we're working on with water quality is, the 1994 date and stuff, that anything prior to 1994, as long as they weren't mining or did anything else. But having data for 1994, well, when they passed the law, there was an idea and stuff that there'd probably be a lot of folks coming in and doing exemptions and other things, and that never happened. Well, now here we are in 2020, and none of our operators, or very, very, very few of them, have any kind of data and stuff that's at pre-1994 and stuff to help out when we're looking at points of compliance and stuff. So it's something that we're wrestling with, and that internally, as well as with our sister agency and stuff over at CPHE. So, but yeah, that's something we'll have to take we'll need to take a look at and stuff, and that describe maybe that baseline data and stuff that needs to be submitted. So
one other quick point is some of these historic mines that are discharging now have legal valid water rights associated to others. And so they're, that's a part of the whole water system. And then if this particular mine goes back into production, gets a new reclamation permit, et cetera, and they're saying, well, you have to shut off all the water on such and such a date, that interferes with the legal water rights that are associated.
Yeah, that'll be something for the state engineer to deal with. But you're right. It's also one of the components when we're looking at permitting a site and stuff is, legal rights to water and how those things take effect and stuff. There's one down near Creed that they're really interested in stuff and keeping the water going to the mine, because if they stop, then that water right goes back through the middle of an EPA reclamation site, and it's beneficial for the mine and stuff to keep the pumps running and stuff, and that to keep the water out of the historic site. So, okay, anybody else? All right, well, it's been about an hour of time and stuff. I'm not sure we'll ever get back, but it's been, but when you start talking about temporary cessation and stuff, it is a very dry issue and stuff. So thank you all for your patience. And we look forward to comments and stuff moving forward and having everybody involved in the process as much as possible. And if there's any questions or anything like that, feel free to send us an email. My email address is russ, R-U-S-S .means, M-E-A-N-S @state.co.us. And we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. Like I said, we really would like everybody's comments and stuff filed electronically through our website so that we can have a running tab on that. Just so you know how it works, you submit that form and it goes into the system, and I get a email notification automatically that I have comments and stuff to go take a look at. So that helps us out, and we'll be working on these drafts and stuff. And the target date's April 24th, but if we can get them done and stuff before that, we'll send out an email to everybody and let them know that those are available for review sooner. So, all right, thank you for your time.